Hi, this is Anna Imagination with the Healing Garden, and thank you so much for joining me for Anna's Lounge. So, I'm on my website today, and I'm putting together the syllabus. I'm building all of the constructs for all of my work, and I'm organizing it basically. And I got to a few parts, and I went, "Oh yeah, I remember this. I did an article on that." So I went back to my blog, and I don't talk about my blog very often. In fact, I never talk about my blog. So just before I decided to do a podcast, I was doing everything on my blog. I was writing down everything. And I got to the point where I could not write to keep up with everything in my head. It finally reached a point where my mind was racing faster than I could type any of it. And it got to a point at the tail end where it became almost incoherent. And that's when I went, I got to do something else. I switched over to my Evernote at that point, and I have like a lot of video, not video, but just audio recording where I'm just talking and I'm capturing it all. And then I finally got to a point where I went, okay, this is getting way too much information. I know what I did. I did this once before. This is the way it was when I wrote Broken. When I wrote Broken, it was just, I had to sit down and write. And it was just this purging of all of my thoughts and ideas onto a page. And I could not stop. And it was just 2 weeks of solid obsession of just getting out everything. Only this time it was about 6 months, longer than that. It was a long time of just needing to purge all of this. And yeah, it was around the time that I created the podcast, Shifting Perspectives, that it was just this massive purge of just, I got to get all of this out of my head. And I finally did it. And now I'm going, okay, I'm all right. I'm all right now. I got it all out. It's weird for me. For me, it's a processing thing. And I wonder if anyone else does this. I'd love to know if anyone else does this. I finished stage 1 of my life, and then I wrote Broken, just to kind of put it all together in one dissertation and say, this is my life, part 1. And then I had another one where I got done with my second stage of my life, and I'm starting my third stage of my life, and I just regurgitate everything and I put it all out there, and I went, this is part 2, my life. But this time it's all done via podcast. It's all done via, it's everything, and it's all out there. And now I feel this massive calm of, okay, I understand now. I've processed. I understand my trauma. And now I can just release it and go on, and I'm fine. I'm perfectly fine. And I'm sitting here at the end of it all. And I started going through the exploratory dialogues to look for those articles that I had written. And what I was seeing was, for me, it was disturbing. So I will probably never again go back and read my own articles. And some of them are quite extraordinary. Others are, well, I'll be very blunt. I wrote at the time that I was a multiple. So a lot of it was me talking with my alters. And that apparently is, I don't know the emotions. I have no idea what the emotions are that I'm feeling. I've never felt these emotions before. It's kind of like embarrassment, but it's not. It's not shame. Maybe it's humility. It might be humility. I saw my own madness. That's what I looked at when I went back on my exploratory dialogues. I saw my own madness, and I saw how bad I was. I saw how we never talk about this topic. It's banned. It's not allowed to be discussed. But let's talk about it. There is an insanity to intelligence. There is an insanity to people who are really smart. And I remember Patch Adams, when Robin was with this, he was in the mental home, and there was this Beautiful man. He was a famous mathematician, and Robin was talking with one of the nurses there about this man, like, "Oh my God, is that?" And he's like, "Yeah, I know." And the nurse made a comment about how crazy the guy got. And I'm watching this man, this mathematician, put these benches up on its side, and I get it. He's looking for another perspective. He's just trying to look for another. He's researching perspective psychology. That's what that mathematician was doing in the nursing home, in the mental hospital. He was studying perspective psychology, trying to figure out my work here. That's what he was doing. It's a topic that it's a very advanced topic that a lot of people don't even know exists. It's the lost subject. And that's just it. It's the lost subject. And once you start doing the work and you start piecing it all together, you start to realize there's a bigger picture here. When you get to a certain level of education, you suddenly stop. It's more than the butterfly effect. There was a theory I read a while ago, I mean like 30 years ago, that explained that all subjects are connected. All of them, and they are. All subjects are connected. And there are so many books out there that prove, look, these are all connected. We just don't know what the common denominator is. The common denominator is perspective psychology. It's perspective. And there are so many intelligent people, highly educated people, and this is all their life work, is trying to figure out the ultimate question, the ultimate, like, look, it's when you notice patterns. It's when you notice symbology. Oh, I hate that word. It's in symbology, the study of symbols. It's when you start to notice that things over in this subject are aligning up with this subject. And I did this when I was got back in the 8th and 7th perspective. I was talking about this, where I could see how physics and manifestation and psychology and philosophy and neuroscience are all the same subject. How when you talk about and when you study, this is what was the huge red flag for me when I was studying the Library of Alexandria, the university, is I took a step back from the university and I was looking at it. It was extraordinary. I looked at their rubric, and okay, so these are the subjects that were taught in the university, on par with science and astronomy and astrology. They had theater, plays, music, poetry, dance. Now, these were not small topics. These were as important as reading and writing, as important as logic and philosophy. And everyone who attended had to attend all of them. And I'm sitting here going, why? Why would you mandate that? What was the emphasis on oratory story? Now, when I studied, when I had my book company and I was completely steeped in the marketing of books, I dissected, why do we tell story? What is the point of story? And then when I looked at the library or the University of Alexandria, I realized that their curriculum was 100% focused around communication. It wasn't about anything other than just trying to bring everything together to articulate and communicate a perspective. That's why they had to study the topics that they studied in Alexandria, so they could bring it all together and communicate the similarities between all of them. But perspective became a lost subject. We lost it. And we've had to start from scratch. When we lost the subject, philosophers were lost with the question, why are we here? Because we lost the subject. So they created it to find the answer. And they did. Like, that was the whole curriculum, was to remind us, hey, we are here because we have a perspective. The ultimate question is, what's the perspective? The ultimate answer is whichever one you're referring to, whichever one you're talking out of. Your perspective is the answer. And they knew this. That's what the school was for, was to teach highly educated people how to understand and see perspective. And then those who graduated went on to become the most famous teachers in all of our global history. Extraordinary. And then Rome destroyed the university. The university underwent like 7 different fires. And the last one was when and the library itself was burned multiple times. But the last fire absolutely demolished it. And it was the end of that university. And when they burned that university, they burned what they were doing there. That's when we lost, and that is how we lost the subject of perspective. But we still had philosophers. We still had people all asking the question, why are we here? And we had to start the whole thing over from scratch. And all we had were pieces of philosophers to go by. And then we started copying the philosophers, and we piecemealed this. Over 2,000 years, we put this back together so that this one man in Patch Adams, this one mathematician, is on it trying to figure out the pursuit. What are we here for? What's the ultimate question? And it's perspective. And it's amazing because I go back on the research now and I'm looking at all of these pockets of people who came in. They were studying perspective psychology. They got to that certain point and they just couldn't. The combination is psychology, philosophy, physics, manifestation, astrology, astronomy, human behavior, neuroscience, and all of the arts. I have, good God, painting, music history, ballet, choreography, music theory. Music theory was a huge part of this, music theory. But there's no way I would have been able to connect the dots without every single one of these vast topics crammed into my brain. Only then could I see what was hypothesized back 30 years ago when I was reading that book on how everything is connected. And this is it. It's extraordinary. So I'm sitting here going back on my work and I see the madness. I absolutely saw the madness, the obsession, I'm so close. I'm almost at the answer. I'm there. I'm going for something. And I can feel it. The minute I realized the ultimate question is, what is the ultimate perspective? Yours. Yours is the ultimate perspective. Everything is opinion. Everything is opinion. Fact does not exist. Reality does not exist. Time does not exist. Solid philosophical data proven through logic. Time, and it's extraordinary. When you look at the work of Einstein, when you look at the work of Tesla, they were huge philosophers. And they're talking about this stuff all over the place. I have more Einstein quotes in my phone because he wasn't just a physicist, he was a philosopher. You cannot be a physicist and not be a philosopher. But you can be a psychologist and not be a philosopher. That one doesn't make any sense to me. That's just a physicist would make a better psychologist than most psychologists because a physicist has philosophy. Philosophy is so huge because philosophy gets you to think. It asks the questions. You think. It is the art form and the study of thinking. Oh, this is the other thing. Science and art are the same thing. They're not a competition. They're the same thing. They are absolutely, there is a science to art and there is an art to science. They are literally the yin and the yang of the balance. And everyone goes in thinking that it's one or the other. But no, there is an art to theater and there is a science to theater. There is an art to painting and there is a science to painting. The science to painting, that's all the Vitruvian Man was. The science of painting is what Da Vinci was doing. That man was a full scientist when he came down to his artwork. Sometimes, other times it was all art. It was both. And it's extraordinary because there is so much art and science, and instead we have this fourth perspective, closed-minded concept. It's just closed-minded. That's all I need to just start saying from now on is it's closed-minded. Open your mind. Because when your mind is closed, you're not seeing any perspective about you except yours. Yes, yours is the right perspective, but you need relativity to understand who you are. And in order to get relativity, you have to have an open mind and you have to know the perspectives of other people so you have the perspective to define who you are. So it's not just your perspective. Your perspective is solely dependent upon who you are and your identity. Now, let's enter the world of abuse. Now you're looking at mental illnesses. Now you've got people who are completely ripped apart and away from their authentic selves. They've lost their identity. They have no idea who they are. And all they have is an abusive relative family to them who put them in the problem that they're in to begin with because of the abuse and the neglect that they endured. So yeah, people don't know who they are. So you don't know what your perspective is because it's completely buried under the perspectives of everybody else who told you what the expectations were at the expense of your identity. It's absolutely a lot. It's a lot. It's so simple. And there's so little, and there's so much. It's all of the things. And I'm just at the end of all of this, transferring everything from research and education mode over to, okay, now to teach. And I'm just in awe. I'm shocked. And I was not expecting to step into the mind of madness. And I won't be taking it down. I will be leaving the exploratory dialogues. They are filled with Easter eggs, and I'm not touching anything there. I glanced at it and I just went, okay, I won't be going through that personally, so I'm going to be writing my own articles. And honestly, all of my material is now obsolete because it's all through the 9th perspective and under. And I'm going, ah, crap. Now I have to redo all of this for the 10th perspective. And so I'm just like, all right. And when I get to the 11th, does that mean I'm going to have to redo all of this for the 11th perspective? Which I might do just to compare, to see how this is how I am. And that's the other thing is I went back to a 7th perspective video today and I was watching it going, oh my God. Oh my God. I can't get over watching the perspective differences. And that's probably my favorite thing about all of this is it's all recorded. So you can go back to when I was 5th perspective. You can go back and watch me you can go back to 2014 when I was 70 pounds overweight and when I was literally days into my therapy. That's on this YouTube channel. And you get to see all of it. And it's just, I can't go back. I looked and I'm like, no, this is too painful. I'm sure other people will be like, on a behavioral study, it's fascinating. But at the same time, I'm looking at it going, wow, I'm flabbergasted. So the genius of intelligence is, or I'm sorry, the madness of genius is, I see Don Quixote just so clearly. It's when you can see the perspective and you suddenly stop caring what other people think because what you can see, what you understand is so much more important. And that's it right there. You prioritize the journey. You prioritize the information you seek more than how you might appear to other people. That's what it is. That is it right there. That is the madness. You value the information you seek, and you will do anything to get that information. It is obsessive. I have yet to meet someone like that who is not obsessive. I don't know why it's obsessive. I do. It's because not knowing is our fear of the unknown. It's how we project and take control is by knowing. So we deliberately put ourselves out there. We deliberately do things to get ourselves drawn in. It's our way of feeling control by understanding. And there is definitely comfort in learning. You feel empowered with it. I think there's more to it than that, though. There is definitely more to it than that. I remember at the end of The King and I, it's my favorite, one of my favorite musicals is The King and I. At the very end of The King and I, he falls in love. Oh, that's the thing that's never talked about in the whole musical. It's infuriating. But they fall in love, Anna and the king. And he's dying, so he goes into his room and he isolates. But not only is he dying, but he's searching torn up over these answers. And he just pores over books and books looking for the answers, and he can't find the answers. And he tosses the book aside and he just picks up another one and he tries. And no matter how much he searches, he cannot find the answer. They never tell you what the question is. In my perspective, I always felt that the question was, what is love? Why do we love? And where does it come from? I think that is what he was looking for. And because he was poring over so many books, and that's where it starts. That is exactly where it starts. You find something and you want the answer. And so you search for the answer and you pore over books and you find out no one has the answer. No one's been able to figure it out. And that was mine. I think that's it, is every person who undergoes this journey gets that to that point where there's a question that they find and no one has the answer. And it becomes their obsession. Well, what's the answer? I'm still waiting for the answer. I don't understand. What's the answer? And it's like you read a book and their whole last chapter is missing. And you decide, I'm going to go find that chapter. And then you just go on this massive journey to find the chapter. And for me, it was, who are we? Why are we here? What are we doing anyway? And I couldn't leave that alone. I read all of the philosophy and then I went, so what's the answer? And then I went to find the answer. And as soon as I got it, finally, it's, oh, well, the answer is our perspectives. That's why we're here, because of perspective. That's what we are, our perspective. That is what matters, our perspective. That's it. It makes sense now. Okay, philosophy is done. I'm going to put that aside now. Psychology is done. I'm going to set those two things aside now. I feel better. And it's okay. I can rest now. I feel like I just finally finished a 30-long-year-old book and I just went, I'm done now. All right. Yeah. Part of me really hopes I don't find another question I can't answer. I really hope that. I really don't want another one. I want to rest for a while and just enjoy this. So if you love shit like this, go ahead and like, follow, subscribe, comment below. Let me know what part of the video that resonated with you the most. And take a look down below at my link tree. Grab Getting Started with Triadic Healing. It's all free. Just get right in, enrolled, and it'll set you right up with everything you need to get enrolled in the Healing Garden University. Thank you so much, and may the kindest of words always find you.